What's up, YouTube? So I recently picked up a few of these digital low voltage cutoffs. You can get them all your usual suspects there. I think I picked these up off of Amazon. Anyhow, they claim they're rated for 12 to 36 volt, and it also claims up to 20 amps prior to the breaker tripping. So personally, I don't see this as being able to handle 20 amps. But we're going to give it a shot and see how it does with as much as it can do. So anyhow, there's our test subject. And I'm going to turn the old power supply on here. And you see I've got it's reading 14 volts from the power supply. Got it set to 12.8 low voltage cutout with a 0.6 volt offset. So let's fire up the old power electronic load here, and you can see it's reading 13 over here, which is actually 13.8, but it lacks the extra digit. Why that reads 14, I'm unsure, because I've tested that power supply numerous times and it is dead nuts 13.8. Regardless, we got it on current mode, so I'm gonna go ahead and turn the current up. We'll start it off kind of low, 4 amp. Turn the load on, make sure sense is on, which it is. So we're drawing 4 amps through it, and you can see it's already dropped down 13. So that's just reading the voltage at the same point that it's actually powering from, I guess, or I'm not sure how you would word that, but anyways, it's that voltage reading would not be super accurate, in other words. So like I said, there's 4 amps. This thing's rated for 20 supposedly before it trips. I don't see it getting there. Maybe it will. But I'm going to jump on up here. Go big or go home. There's 14 amps. Let me make sure none of my wires are gonna melt. I think we're okay so far. $14 amp. Says the breaker trip at 20. I just don't want to fire. 17.5 amps. And the power supply is still spot on with the voltage and pretty darn close on the amperage. It's reading a little bit heavy, but not bad. It's actually pretty darn close. It looks like it's off in the camera, but when I look at it in person, it's pretty darn close. So let me check these wires again. I smell something warming up. Oh yeah, these little wires here are getting warm. They're not quite set afire warm. That one's getting pretty damn hot. I'm going to go ahead and shut that off. So, let me I could just about remove that. It's got the solder so warm. That whole board is pretty darn warm. I think it would be safe to say you could probably run 10 amps through it. Now, to be fair, these wires that I have, these little yellow wires here, they're a little bit on the thin side for 17 amps. But this red and black ones over here is cheap China silicone wire, and they're not nearly as hot as that yellow wire, and they're supposedly the same gauge. So I'm not sure what that's all about, but let's take her on up to 22 amps real quick and just see if it trips, or might get a little fire here. I hope not. We'll take it on up to 24 and a half. Okay, still doing it. It's well above the rating. Didn't trip any breakers though. So we'll shut that off, let everything cool down a little bit, because these wires are, oh yeah, they're if you held them more than about 20 seconds or so, you would start to feel the burn. I don't mean that as in Mr. Sanders. But again, these wires are supposedly the same gauge, and that cheap silicone wire that I'm using there on the input is not nearly as hot as those yellow wires, which is kind of surprising. Honestly, I expected that cheap silicone wire to get hotter, but it's been the complete opposite. So I'm gonna take it to probably gonna blow it up, but I'm gonna take it up to 26 amps real quick, because I don't think there's a breaker on it. They said there is. There's 26 amps. Let's see if we can find a breaker on it. I think the breaker is going to be the wires. Nothing's breaking. It's still going. And as you can see, it's just under 30 amps. It's legit. I'm gonna shut this off though. I don't want to burn them wires. Okay, so yikes. They're getting pretty warm. And the cheap China silicone's getting fairly warm too at this point. And I just knocked my lead off. Anyways, that's as far as I'm going to try it. Realistically, if you're going to use one of those, I don't think I would push it more than 12 amps at the most constant. Yeah, it handled far more, but those wires were getting really hot. And the issue is, these little connectors here, I forget what they're called, but those little green connectors there, they're so small in there, you really can't get much bigger wire into them. So it says on Amazon it says it's rated for 20 amps before breaker trips is what it reads. But I just, as you've seen, went well above that. Nothing tripped. It kept working. But if I would have left it on for very much longer, one of those wires would have started to melt, hands down. So again, I think a 10 amp is probably a lot better if you're going, especially if it's going to be something constant. 12 amp if you just absolutely want to push it. Anything more than that and you're really rolling the dice, especially the longer you plan on, leaving it in use. So that's that. Catch you later. Peace.